Tech Rainmakers episode with Nate Brown. He's the Senior Director of CX at Arise and co-founder of CX Accelerator. Customer experience is more than a job for him. He lives it daily through his work, his talks, and his writing. Nate, they call you CX legend, right? And a true customer person. But this is probably not the area where you started, your professional journey. So do tell us, what were the twists and turns that actually brought customer experience as the focus of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I've been very excited for this conversation. Hello to everybody out there and welcome to this podcast. We're going to talk about customer experience, which is that thoughts and perceptions that people have towards a brand. And it's a fascinating science, right? So it's very right brained, it's very left brained. It's all about these feelings and perceptions that people have. So it's very right brain, but then it's a lot of best practice and a lot of science around the analytics and the best practices. So it's a fascinating study. And it's definitely not where I started. I had no idea what it was as I was a young customer service professional and trying to find my way. Ultimately, just serving people. That's what I unlocked early in my career, was that desire to help solve problems. I was selling postage meters on the streets of Jacksonville, Florida, and it wasn't going super well. Turns out that's not for me, but I did love servicing those accounts that had an existing postage meter where I could go in there and just understand what they were looking to achieve with it and how I could help them solve those problems. And then that grew into a customer service technology role, supporting adult learning as a learning management system, a complicated library of content. And then it became a lot more complicated over time as we acquired new technology into us in the occupational health area. Suddenly the problems got a lot bigger and a lot more urgent. But I still absolutely just loved the puzzle of customer service and trying to figure out how we could get people on with their days.
Hmm.
And I did to some degree as I was managing that team for many years and loving that. The one thing I didn't love about it is that I kept having to engage our customers with the same problems again and again. And it was like, there's a better way to do this, surely. If we look upstream in the journey, how can we avoid these problems on a more macro level so that in the customer service area, we're not solving the same things again and again and again for all these different clients running into the same problems? Let's get smarter about this larger ecosystem that our customer lives inside of. I didn't have the terminology at the time, but what it was, customer experience. Let's create a better customer journey, set clearer expectations, reduce friction throughout so that ultimately they can have a better perception of us and generate that additional share of wallet and loyalty on our platforms, on our technology. And so that unlocked something inside of me that was significant. And I was consuming all this literature, Annette Franz, Gene Bliss, Jeff Toyster, just diving into this world of customer experience, kind of elevating my mentality from that reactive customer service mode. And
Hmm.
that was a sweet time. I really enjoyed that period of time working inside of a major enterprise, a safety science company, and started what would be the first like organic CX program inside of a division of that company, and had so much fun experimenting with that, bringing together a CX change coalition inside of that technology division. And we had some great success with it. We did some really creative, innovative things around changing the mentality towards our customers and ultimately changing our behaviors to some degree towards our customers and enhancing that experience and thinking differently about how we measure that customer journey. So then I jumped from that safety science company into a chief experience officer role in a startup, and I'm getting to serve all different kinds of clients now. Everything from gaming to environmental health and safety, to many other verticals in this space, and consult and help, and also do a lot of evangelizing on the topic of customer experience. And one thing I love doing is coming in and doing just a CX pep rally. Let's just get your employee population excited about how they can serve customers in new ways and serve each other in new ways.
Hmm.
So that's the work I'm doing now, and I love it.
Okay. There were two words that kind of stood out for me. One was organic CX. So I want to understand what you meant by that. And the other was friction. So what exactly is your take on what are you calling friction, if you can share with us? So
Yeah,
first
for
the
sure. So
organic CX and then friction. Yeah.
great question. That the reason I call it an organic CX program is because to some degree it was very grassroots. I
Hmm.
mean, so you have your formal establishment of a CX program that's
Uh,
coming down through the powers that be, And that's great. That's necessary to have
Hmm.
the buy-in, to have the budget, to
Hmm.
have the unification and coordination that you need
Hmm.
to be able to move forward. But there's a
Yes.
whole nother layer there that we often forget, and it's
Hmm.
mobilizing those mid-level managers
Hmm.
and then really appealing to the employee population on the front line to
Hmm.
say, hey, here's how we together can serve our customers better. Here's what it looks like.
Hmm.
Here's our brand voice and how we get to be this organization in a compelling and distinctive way to them.
Hmm.
And we want your feedback on this. We want to learn where you're not free to serve. That's an expression, a hashtag that I love using on Twitter, is that idea of being free to serve that Leslie Offelhaven and Jenny Dempsey really started using years ago. And it's that idea of how can we reduce friction, which
Hmm.
to me is just that stress point. I can't
Hmm.
do what I want to do. I'm
Yeah.
trying to navigate my relationship with you, business,
Huh.
and I can't achieve my objective. So therefore, I'm a little bit stuck. You got to
Hmm.
come in and unstuck me. You got to
Hmm.
put me back in flow in
Hmm.
the ideal customer experience path.
Wow. Doesn't it still flow from the top? In the sense, have you ever had an experience where this conversation came from the ground up, that we are feeling stuck and there are things to be done, or has it always flowed from the top?
It's definitely a combination of the two, and that is kind of why I call it an organic CX
Hmm.
establishment in the safety science company,
Hmm.
was because it was to a large degree employee driven.
Hmm.
It's like
Okay.
we're seeing these things, we're
Hmm.
feeling these pressures.
Hmm.
Let's surface and
Hmm.
try to unify our voice to
Hmm.
some degree together,
Hmm.
so that we can help our senior leaders to understand how our lives could be improved and how our customers' lives could be
Hmm.
improved. And so there was kind of a neat overflow that happened upwards. And
Hmm.
so I wasn't a CX director at the time when I was starting this program, but
Hmm.
I had enough ability to unify the leadership, to unify the employee population, that they
Hmm.
did actually create a true CX director role down the road, and it
Wow.
became that formal function that
Hmm.
had some budget, that had some seats at the table in terms
Hmm.
of the strategy for the new
Hmm.
year and things of that nature. But it really did start very organically.
Wow. So it does have, so as you have worked across different industries, do you see the same thing happening across industry, or do you feel it's in certain industries, yes, there is like the match of both, up and down approach, but a lot of places it's only down approach, not matched by enough being done from up there, or it's only driven by the top, and the ground level people really don't understand the importance of the voice of the customer. So how has your experience been across industries?
I mean, every organization's going to think about change a little bit differently.
Hmm.
I mean, some organizations, the grassroots change can really take hold.
Hmm.
It can really do something. You have executives that are tuned to hear that, to see that, and to react and respond to that. Other
Hmm.
organizations, that's not going to work.
Hmm.
It really does need to come from the voice of a senior executive, maybe even the CEO themselves,
Hmm.
if it's going to be established as a
Hmm.
lasting priority in the business.
Hmm.
Either one of those is okay, but it is good to know. And Gene Bliss has a brilliant section in Chief Customer Officer 2.0 talking about identifying the power core in the business.
Hmm.
Every organization has a power core. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, technology professionals, it's the IT department,
Yeah.
because you control the data, you
Hmm.
control the vast majority of the budget,
Hmm.
because the tool sets and the information is so critical to the digital experience and the transformations that we're trying to do, the strategy of the business, that
Hmm.
IT is oftentimes the power core. They're establishing the strategic priorities together with the senior management team. Other power cores could be sales.
Hmm.
You have a sales driven organization. That's very common to see that. You oftentimes have a product led
Yes.
organization. I was on a webinar 2 days ago with One Business World
Huh.
where the speaker was talking about what a product led organization looks like and why he believes that's the future of SaaS organizations.
Okay.
Whereas I really believe it's going to be a more customer centric approach combined with these other elements. But regardless, it's good for you as a technology leader, as a mid level director, as a
Hmm.
CX leader, anybody who's trying to impact change
Hmm.
upward, downward, and across the business.
Hmm.
Identifying that power core and making them an ally in
Hmm.
your change initiative is so, so critical. Otherwise, if they don't adapt it intrinsically and start to speak that language with you and
Hmm.
want it for themselves, then it's probably not going to happen in the business.
So how have you managed to do both these things, right? Be kind of be an ally or make allies of the score group, as well as keep in touch with the ground level workforce. Because I heard you talking somewhere about how important it is to understand the voice of your employees as well. You can't just keep on focusing on the voice of the customer. It'll never be a complete thing, right? So how have you over the years done both these things as you have become more and more senior? So there are layers between you and the ground, and there is
Yeah.
a little bit of a friction between the core group and you. So how have you managed it over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it's essential to have that voice of employee channel in place. And I made the mistake early, and one voice of customer program that I was so excited for. I went and got everybody these buttons, and they literally flash like they're flashing USB web keys, and was putting them on the desk of any employee in our division that
Huh,
listened to customers directly, that got
huh,
feedback from customers directly. And this was their ability to very quickly and easily take that feedback from the customer and centralize it into a very simple form, just
hmm,
a quick and dirty form. And we would review that feedback and ultimately reduce the friction that we were seeing, identify those trends and
wow,
address it and close the loop with
huh,
that customer in terms of we heard you, we appreciate your voice so much.
huh,
Here's the change that we're making. And and I was giving this button to one of our sales
huh.
representatives, and she goes, "Where's my button?"
Oh my god, okay.
And then I realized like we've done all this
Huh,
extra work, all this
yeah,
intentional effort to listen to our customers,
huh,
and we've not done a darn thing to listen
huh,
to our own people
huh,
and to show them that we value their voice. It's
yeah,
like I have done this completely backwards.
huh,
And it made me realize, and it's not just in the area of feedback or voice of customer and voice of employee. As we try to design
huh,
special and compelling experiences for our customers,
hmm,
we need to be designing that same thing for our employees.
yeah,
Denise Leone has the brilliant metaphor of as you create your employee experience, you're creating a gift. You're packaging it, you're wrapping it, you're putting something special inside, and you're giving that gift to your employees.
hmm,
And that is the very gift that they exchange, that they extend to
hmm,
the customers that they serve. So if
wow,
you're giving them a gift that
hmm,
doesn't look like the gift you want them to give your customers,
huh,
then you've created a problem. it's
yeah,
it's not going to happen. They can only give the gift that you have given them.
yeah,
So think about what that gift looks like. What have you extended to your own people to show that you value them, that you care about them, that you want them to have an amazing experience.
hmm,
And then from the foundation of that authentic experience that they're having as
hmm,
part of your company, do they have the ability then to give that gift forward to the customer?
wow. Does it also mean giving them more power at times, because finally they have to be able to handle a lot of situations on their own if they're really going to give the best to the customer? Have you ever felt that something important? And
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I want to go back quickly there. I didn't really answer the question as fully as I meant to on the one before. So that voice of employee channel is really critical. And
hmm,
so what we did is we went back after I had that come to me
huh,
moment.
huh,
It was like, okay, I need to establish a channel for our people, and so we
huh,
created a pulse survey channel capability that made a huge difference at that time
hmm,
in terms of employees having a good place to extend feedback, a safe place that
hmm,
was being actively reviewed, that they were being respected in that voice. They had the ability to do that anonymously if they desired.
okay,
And so, I mean, that was significant to have that.
hmm,
So then the idea of extending power to the employee population, I mean, yes and no. I mean, what we want to do is guide the employee to where they can be successful. We want them to be, again, hashtag free to serve.
yeah,
And so if they have hurdles and bad processes and all these things in the way
hmm,
of them being able to really truly assist the customer with what they
hmm,
need,
hmm,
then we need to wrap something else around that.
Hmm.
We don't necessarily need to extend more power to the employee, but we do need to equip them,
Hmm.
maybe with better tools and better information.
Hmm.
Maybe the knowledge curation around them is broken and
Hmm.
they can't get the information they need to serve this customer well. And
Yeah.
so they're having to force things and break rules and do stuff just to be able to extend information
Hmm.
quickly to the customer and serve them well. We want to eliminate situations like that. But yeah, I mean, you do want to, in different points, extend that trust and extend that autonomy to
Hmm.
your people at
Hmm.
all levels. I mean, they need to be, they need to demonstrate that they can be trusted with those responsibilities. And but if they have no ability ever to
Yeah.
make themselves do something new,
Hmm.
to bring curiosity into their everyday where they get to solve a new challenge, a new problem, do
Hmm.
something a little bit different and have the autonomy, have the guide rails, but not necessarily the playbook of here's everything you're going to do. Give them guide rails and let them explore and generate curiosity in how to best do the work.
Wow. That all sounds so interesting. But okay, then we had one part of the question also left unanswered, which was how do you deal with the power code, which might, be not in sync with giving the front line the power, or maybe, making their life easier. So how do you then deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, it's really understanding truly what their objectives are and
Hmm.
starting to speak their language a little bit.
Hmm.
I mean, if you're always trying to force customer experience onto them, hey,
Hmm.
you got to do this. This
Yeah.
is the way that businesses grow, which is true. This is the competitive differentiator, which is true. But
Hmm.
if you're just like kind of slapping them, like, you got to do this. This is so important. You got to change what you're doing right now
Hmm.
and come and do this other thing that I'm telling you about.
Hmm.
Anybody's going to be like, dude,
Yeah.
get out of my face. I
Hmm.
have all these other things I'm trying to do right now. I'm very busy. I
Hmm.
don't need you coming over here with your set of initiatives.
Hmm.
So if anytime CX becomes your set of initiatives as a CX leader, you're in a
Hmm.
bad place. So you got to flip the mentality on it. You've got to make it their priority.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the idea is, okay, you've got this challenge right here.
Hmm.
You've got this digital experience that you're in charge of to create this new portal here and have this new customer facing tool set that
Hmm.
is meant to make things quicker and easier. Hey, do you have the voice of customer feedback right now to really know if you
Hmm.
have done your job well here? Do you know how much you've impacted the lives of our customers with this new digital experience that you created? If not, I actually have the ability to help with that. As a CX professional, I know how to run voice of customer programs. I would love to bring some assistance to you
Hmm.
and help you with this metric of success.
Hmm.
So that way you're coming to them and you're extending help to them. But what you're doing is serving the customer. You are serving them, absolutely. You're bringing customer experience principles into their work and demonstrating how serving the customer well,
Hmm.
regardless of how you measure success,
Hmm.
whether it's just very intrinsically, very empirically of, yeah,
Hmm.
uh, these people are happy, all the way through to the very mathematical equations of loyalty and renewal and retention and customer lifetime value and whatever financial metric you want to attribute, you can
Hmm.
show when we serve our customers better, here's how we unlock this, here's how we grow this capability here. It just takes some time
Yes.
and it takes you being very capable
Hmm.
to demonstrate that value and to speak their language and embed CX into their mentality.
Yeah. Okay, so the technology space has been changing, right? And you come from the experience side. So how have you been keeping up to date with the technological changes over the years? What have you been doing to make sure that you are in? Because if you're going to be able to talk to them, you have to be kind of in sync with whatever is new. So how have you been managing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think about the technology space, right? I mean, there's all this incredible automation and
Yeah.
robotics, and then there's obviously within the SaaS world, software being
Huh.
technology. I mean, and it feels to me, and this might be my ignorance, they are just completely different. It really depends on the type of technology and the ways that they're extending their brand promise out into the world in terms of how that technology improves lives. That's going to totally change the type of conversation that you're having with them, but more specific into the software area, because that is where I came from
Hmm.
inside of that safety science company. I was representing the software division for the 12 years that I worked there.
Hmm.
And as far as staying on the forefront of that, I mean, in the CX world, there has been a tremendous influx in positive, helpful technology.
Yeah.
Tremendous influx.
Hmm.
I mean, if we think about voice of customer specifically and the way that we use to measure the result of this work of customer experience, it was all survey based. I mean, it was just
True.
very reactive.
Hmm.
Please take this survey.
Huh.
And the response rates on like email based surveys are down between 1% and 3%. We're just not getting a good response rate, generally speaking, on those type of surveys. But optimizing to the mobile device where we can get a very good, clean, quick
Huh.
survey in an incredibly timely fashion to them in a
Huh.
way that they might actually take it, that
Huh.
gets our response rate back up to like between 5 and 7% with a mobily optimized survey
Hmm.
that's very well timed and the
Hmm.
UI is there. But even beyond surveys at all, I mean,
Hmm.
if we look at our ability now to use a customer experience management platform
Hmm.
to take the interaction with the customer,
Hmm.
whether it's text based, if it's
Hmm.
something where we've written a ticket to them through a web portal or an email or a live chat situation, or if it's voice and we've recorded a call with them, we can take that customer interaction and we can automate our ability to measure the quality of that interaction in the form of customer sentiment. We can capture that interaction so quickly and effectively, tag it, analyze it automatically, and then have that sentiment value coming out. We can know so clearly at
Yeah.
scale how well we're serving our customers without being dependent on them coming back and telling us how we did. Because we already know we were there. We were there for the interaction.
Yeah.
We should be able to determine for ourselves if it went
Yeah.
well or not.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is one area where technology has been phenomenally helpful
Hmm.
to demonstrate how well we're serving our customers through these interactions, identifying those friction points so much faster and more effectively by using customer experience management practices.
So that seems like a lot of work, keeping on top of being on top of all these changes that are coming. They are helpful, but that takes a lot of work. So tell us more about CX accelerators, because that's one kind of gray area for me, that what exactly is that all about and where did that come from?
Sure. Well, it came from a place of loneliness originally.
Okay.
I mean, CX work can be a very lonely endeavor.
Huh.
If and especially with the mentality that I had originally,
Huh.
which is I'm now in a CX role, I have to try and do CX for the whole organization,
Huh.
and kind of I almost separated myself in a way
Hmm.
where I hadn't matured to the point where I hadn't realized that my job was really to just help and unlock customer experience in the minds of my peers and other
Huh.
leaders.
Huh.
But it felt very lonely to me at first.
Huh.
And so I was looking for community and
Huh.
I wasn't finding it. I wasn't finding it out there and I needed help. I needed to extend beyond the walls of my organization to
Huh.
be able to see the problems differently and innovate and get new perspectives and ideas.
Huh.
And so we started a Slack channel. And that was CX Accelerator in the beginning.
Huh.
And then we created cxaccelerator.com and it's got these interesting resources that we've created around it to
Huh.
help, especially those who are getting started in the world of CX. So we
Okay.
wrote the CX primer as a foundation point to
Wow.
accelerate somebody's learning in this space and be able
Okay.
to just get a 20,000 foot view of it so that they can start to get some confidence of, yeah, okay, I understand what this is.
Huh.
Now I can forge my path inside of this work of customer experience. So it's a nonprofit organization. It is just meant for the edification, for the admonishment of CX professionals on their career journey in
Wow.
this space and helping them along the way.
Wow. And how big is this community as in
Yeah,
uh
it's not super big. It's a little over 3,000 people.
okay.
So large enough to get really good perspectives and engagement. We have a wonderful worldwide audience. It makes me
Wow.
so happy to see people from Latin America and Australia and from Europe. I
Huh.
mean, there's just a different mentality that can be so helpful by
Hmm.
being able to see the different ways that people are thinking about the work and the ways
Yeah.
that they're innovating in their geographic areas. So having that worldwide community has been really special.
Yeah. Okay, that brings me to an interesting point. You are going to be keynote speaker for this conference in Argentina, CX Day. Does the CX experience or the approach to it really change geographically? Because we say that the borders have melted and the world is one big space.
Yeah.
Does it really change from country to country or even within US from state to state? Do you feel it does, or it's just superficial differences and underneath it's all the same?
The way it starts is very similar in my mind. I
Mhm.
mean, the way we build a customer experience, and I almost use the word program, which I gotta slap myself because don't use that word program. This is not a program. If you start talking about CX as a program or an initiative, it puts a finish line in everybody's mind. Hey, we're going to try out CX for 2 quarters and let's see how it does. That's not going to work.
Right.
We're literally changing the culture of how we think about our customers and how we behave towards them, how we serve them.
Yeah.
So this is an ongoing revolution inside of the organization. And the way it begins is going to be very similar regardless of where you are in the world, at least in my opinion. We have to understand what our customers currently think about us.
Hmm.
We have
Yes.
to take the assumptions out of the work before we can jump in and make any changes.
Yeah.
So having that voice of customer engine in place is so critical. That's another Gene Blissism, that idea of engine to
Hmm.
churn out these insights
Huh.
and get the CX vehicle running. You
Yeah.
can't start driving this vehicle until the engine is in place and operating well. And that engine is the voice of customer
Hmm.
capability.
Hmm.
So it starts there. Then you're taking a change management concept, framework, idea, whatever it means inside of that organization, to take
Hmm.
these insights and to give them the capability to take root and to grow over time. And
Hmm.
that's going to look different inside of every organization. By
Okay.
default, I use John Coder model, leading change.
Hmm.
But a lot, I've used Lean Six Sigma. I've toyed with ADKAR.
Hmm.
There are many change management frameworks out there, and some are just way more organic in terms
Hmm.
of here's how we take these insights and make a difference. And then you have to be able to measure that change. So again, it's kind of like that voice of customer component. We've
Hmm.
made these changes together. We've got the strategy. We've united the senior leadership group. We've
Hmm.
got people participating in this concept of CX. Now,
Hmm.
how is it impacting the lives of our customers and making those adjustments over time? So, I
Hmm.
mean, that very simple view of CX, that's probably not going to change much. But
Hmm.
what will change
Hmm.
is how people want to be served and what success looks like to them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that I'm dealing with in the area of player experience and in North America that
Hmm.
want things so quickly, just
Hmm.
immediate,
Hmm.
just I don't want to have to deal with you as a person. I just want to get on with it. Give me the information digitally
Huh.
inside of this mobile app, ideally, or
Huh.
in the console that I'm gaming inside of. I
Huh.
need the seamless experience. So I mean that's a
Huh.
huge priority for
Yeah.
some demographics of people. In other areas and in other types of experiences that are a little
Huh.
bit more intimate in terms of deep B2B or a B2C situation where it's like a doctor or somebody
Huh.
that you have an established long-term relationship with, relationships are going to be super important in terms of the perceptions that people have towards the business, because
Hmm.
that's the work of CX. So the way that we think, the
Hmm.
perceptions that we generate are so different in different areas of the world. So the way that we take this feedback, the way we deal with it and try to enhance those perceptions, if we don't understand how our people think and
Hmm.
develop those personas really effectively, we're not going to be able to do this work well at all.
True. True. Wow. This is a small question. Have you seen that? Have you felt that people are becoming impatient over probably the last decade or two, as far as the results and whatever they are looking for? Have you felt that as a CX professional?
We use the slightly dirty word around here of customer entitlement. And
Yeah.
absolutely, I mean, absolutely, that is skyrocketed in
Huh.
the past many years. And it's been largely driven by incredible capabilities that certain companies, Amazon, have developed that make it remarkable what we can
Huh.
accomplish. I mean, I can get something delivered to my door in 2 hours right now and get the best price on it, have incredible selection of items. I mean, it's insane
Yeah.
what some organizations have done in terms of raising the bar
Yeah.
and to some degree creating entitled customers and forming unrealistic expectations for most of us.
Hmm.
So it's kind of this tension
Huh.
because I mean somebody did it. I mean customers do expect it because it is a real thing that has happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got to catch up to some degree. But then there also is like there are many customers that are behaving in just unheard of ways, that are acting out, that are lashing out. I posted on LinkedIn recently. It
Hmm.
is never acceptable to verbally abuse a customer service worker.
Hmm.
And we're seeing that more and more where people feel entitled to express their frustration in ways that don't recognize the other person as being a human being. That is not okay. And
Hmm.
organizations have to protect their employees
Hmm.
to be able to be free to serve. Again, in this case, it's protecting them from abusive customers, identifying them as such, and making it very clear to those individuals that that type of interaction will not be tolerated.
Hmm.
And businesses have to take a firm stance on that type of behavior.
Hmm.
That is moving away from the idea of on demand,
Hmm.
very clean experiences into a different realm of abusive experiences. But it all kind of is wrapped together
Hmm.
in this new customer mentality
Hmm.
of I expect these things and I'm going to get them, and if I don't, then sometimes I'm going to behave in ways that are truly inappropriate. So as a society together, we need to unpack some of that customer entitlement, definitely deal with that abuse component, and
Hmm.
make it very clear that that's not going to be accepted and that we're going to
Hmm.
protect our people from that. But then in every way that we can, we do need to challenge ourselves and push ourselves to
Yeah.
achieve that really frictionless, that really seamless, great experiences that customers have come to expect, because that is a good challenge that we should be adapting.
So you talked about friction fighters in that article.
Yeah.
Is this one of the stresses you talked about that CX people are facing across? You went to Vegas and everywhere, and there's the stress you felt. Is that one of the reason the customer entitlement? Uh, and what other reasons are there? And who is this friction fighter?
Yeah, so I haven't been able to publish it yet. So a sneak peek on this concept of I'm about to release an article
Yeah.
around unlocking this group of friction fighters inside the organization. I mean,
Hmm.
customer experience is so much
Hmm.
about friction fighting. Voice of customer helps us to identify the friction.
Yeah.
Change management helps us to eliminate the friction,
Hmm.
and then the strategy helps us to be able to predict future friction
Yeah.
and to try and make it not ever happen.
Hmm.
So I mean, there's these different principles that we have, but a lot of them is working hard to create harmony, to create seamless interactions,
Hmm.
and just be the guide for the
Hmm.
customer. To use a story brandism by Donald Miller, the customer is the hero of this story.
Hmm.
Sometimes the hero acts up, as we just talked about, but generally speaking, they don't. And
Yeah.
we get to be the guide. We get to serve them as the guide to understand what their definition of success is and
Hmm.
navigate them through that journey very effectively.
Yeah.
Well, in that journey, there's going to be tension points, there's going to be friction. And so, our ability to together fight that friction and move the customer down the path with
Hmm.
harmony and bring peace to these situations that oftentimes result in tremendous frustration,
Hmm.
which is what we're feeling out in the world. This was a
Yeah.
horrible week for travel. I don't know if you've seen any of those headlines or anything, but I've got a ton of friends that have been stuck on 12-hour delays and all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of friction out there in the world right now with
Hmm.
labor shortage, with other supply chain issues, with all this stuff going on. There's a lot of friction out there to be
Hmm.
had. So if we're going to try and help and be helper people, we want to ultimately bring a reduction in that friction. And so by shifting our mentality towards being able to see that more clearly, where that friction is, and to stop seeing one another as the friction points, because I think that's what's happening inside a lot of these organizations.
Hmm.
We get so angry at that other department, that
Hmm.
other person. They don't know what they're doing, uh, until if our product team is never going to get their act under control, then I'm not even going to try. Until
Hmm.
they solve their problems, I'm not even going to try. And we
Hmm.
start to see one another as friction points, as hurdles
Yeah.
in our journey, in our experience as an employee for the company. So
Hmm.
it's the idea of shifting that mentality to finding the real friction, the
Hmm.
friction that's resulting in a worse customer experience, and
Hmm.
then unifying together to go fight that instead
Hmm.
of fight each other.
Wow.
So it's kind of it's just kind of that mentality shift of what is the real friction that we're
Hmm.
fighting? How can we what does it look like for us to fight together? Because a lot of
Hmm.
people don't know. You've got a couple people that are carrying this huge burden and
Hmm.
doing it in a very lonely way. And
Hmm.
that's where burnout comes from. You're going to burn out your best people if they
Hmm.
can't rally together. I mean, to use the Simon Sinek quote, you don't win with the sharpness of your sword. You
Hmm.
win with the strength of your shields,
Yeah.
coming around one another and being able to get back to back and then face
Yeah.
outward
Yeah.
towards the real friction
Wow.
instead of always being worried about the knife in the back from your own peers.
Hmm. Wow.
So
Wow. This
that's
is,
what we're trying to create.
yeah, this is so interesting. So it seems like this team of superheroes has to come from all the departments, right? It can't be
Oh
just
yeah.
one department who has the mantle of being friction fighters and they are taking care of everything. It has to be a team effort across the organization. Awesome, awesome. Looking forward to, reading more from you on this or hearing more from you in the
To be
coming
released very soon.
months. Yeah, great. Uh, you talked about the stresses that we are feeling right now with all the delays and everything. But the last 2 years have also been pretty bad and they have been unexpected and they have changed things so much. Uh, I'm talking about COVID. So, has there been a shift in how CX professionals are approaching the whole thing because of COVID, or has that had no impact whatsoever on your role or your concerns or your fights? If you can just share more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has made a huge impact in the work of customer experience. And what I've seen the most is around the great resignation idea
Hmm.
and the fact that so much of the top talent has left their jobs.
Hmm.
And it has made the type of experience that we're trying to design almost impossible to deliver. So the work of CX and many people,
Hmm.
many CX leaders have had to go back to very much the foundational elements of focusing on the employee experience and trying to get that talent back
Hmm.
to make it possible to deliver the experience that we're looking to design. Until that's even possible to happen, us strategizing and thinking about all these new ways to serve our customers, if we don't have the people to do it, it's
Hmm.
it's not going to be possible. So I mean that's probably the one that's made the biggest impact. But we're also, I mean, just scrambling to get our digital experiences under control as well.
Hmm.
I mean, with so many people changing the ways that they work,
Yeah.
and that huge migration of work from home,
Hmm.
and just the different ways that people are interacting with brands now,
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
terms of not going out and having the experience in the same way out in the world.
Yeah.
CX professionals have had to shift greatly and think about how
True.
can I enable the experience that we want to give, the brand promise that we
Hmm.
created years ago? How can we deliver that brand promise in a different way than what we've ever done? And it
Yeah.
usually comes back to a new digital experience. So those are the two biggest things that have changed. A tremendous focus on seamless digital experiences,
Hmm.
and then also we've got to get the right people in place to make this stuff happen. And we got to focus even more than we already were on that employee experience so that we can attract and retain the best people.
Yeah, retain is the big word. Is there any way you have found to kind of future proof? Because given the last 2 years, it feels, it could happen. It is possible, right? So is there a way to future proof, or do you feel that we'll just have to be ready when or if it ever happens again?
I mean, having the strategy in place that's flexible enough to adapt very,
Hmm.
very effectively is important. I mean, if
Hmm.
you have a very rigid philosophy of customer experience that doesn't leave any room for variables outside
Hmm.
of your organization to come in and force you to evolve and to change, you're going to be in a world of hurt because who knows what is coming down the path.
Yeah.
So I mean that is certainly true, but I mean to say it again, and I know it's a basic point, but if you want to galvanize the future of your customer experience,
Hmm.
galvanize your people, creating that circle of trust around them, working on your culture, that is the greatest way to galvanize the experience. Otherwise, I mean, you could have the best dreams, the best strategy in the world, But if you don't have the vehicle in place, the people, the talent in place that can
Hmm.
actually give that gift to the customer,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to deliver on it.
So true. So true. So, what is one big technological change or new something that is on the horizon that you are really looking forward to, which will
Yeah,
change CX,
I,
right?
I think the way that we are able to get more proactive in the lives of our customers is going to be significant. I think it'll be largely driven by this
Hmm.
device,
Hmm.
as this mobile device that has kind of become our central interface to
So
the
true.
worldwide collection of knowledge that's out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
As this evolves and becomes, maybe more something wearable or other,
Huh.
whatever this becomes,
Huh.
this will become the guide for us. I mean,
Yeah.
Jonathan Shore, our CEO of Officium that was acquired recently by Arise,
Huh.
he's talked about Jarvis and
Huh.
everybody having their own personal Jarvis capability that is
Huh.
essentially their customer service agent in their pocket or
Huh.
wearing.
Yeah.
And I do think that that is what will eventually transpire, is that organizations will be so good at
Huh.
understanding the hero
Huh.
of the story, which is that
Huh.
customer,
Huh.
and being the guide for them in this tremendously effective way that's scalable, that's sustainable, that's right there with them no matter where they are, what
Huh.
they're experiencing. They can see it.
Huh.
They can think about it. They can be proactive in terms
Yeah.
of interfacing with that situation alongside the
Yeah.
customer. It's going to be a far more proactive and more intimate approach to customer service than what we could ever dream of today.
Yeah. That is interesting as well as a little scary at the same time, right? Having that kind of a intimate awareness of you through technology. So now we come to the close of our webinar, and I want to ask my favorite question, that what would you tell a young Nate? What would your advice be?
Oh man, that's a cool question. I mean, I feel like if I could step back 20 years, I would just tell myself to chill out and just care about the people around me. I mean, just develop positive relationships. It is not about you, Nate Brown. It's about your ability to serve these other people really well. I
Wow.
feel like I was just very selfish in my mentality. And I spent a lot of years chasing this fictional dream of what a career should look like. And the older I get, the more that I see, I
Hmm.
don't want a career,
Hmm.
a storied career.
Hmm.
My legacy is going to be in the relationships that I've created and the people that I've been able to serve well and the people I've been able to help. So if I had started helping with a less selfish view in my 20s, I feel like I'd be way further along today.
Wow. Wow. That's really inspiring, Nate. Thank you so much for taking out time and talking to
Thank you.
us. And to our audience, if you have any questions for Nate, please leave them in our comments and we will take them
Yes.
to Nate. Also, let us know if you want to hear something more about something else. And we will also, bring Nate back for another conversation. So thank you so much, Nate.
Thank you, Anupam. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful conversation. We appreciate you.